by bloodshed? Do the gods make known their will?
Only through bloodshed can one know the will of the gods. At this moment, this man clad in golden armor was extremely fierce. Who would have thought that just a few days ago, he was brutally defeated by his own younger brother and fled in panic? Even though he possessed divine power and could stand toe-to-toe with the king of Atlantis, his underwater combat skills were far less solid than his brother's. Even the trident his mother left him was broken. If his sister-in-law hadn't lent a hand, he would have probably perished. But his brother felt somewhat upset watching this scene, so, unable to contain his anger, he ordered the pursuit of the two. The man, named Arthur, was a chosen one with both human and Atlantean blood. His life was destined to be extraordinary, but his story began with an ordinary man. One day, Tom, a lighthouse keeper, found a dying woman on the beach. He didn't hesitate to take her back for treatment. When the woman woke up, she lifted Tom up with one hand, then, upon seeing a submarine on the TV, her excessive movement pulled at her wounds, and she fell into a coma again. When the mysterious woman woke up for the second time, she was filled with strangeness and vigilance towards everything around her. It wasn't until she saw Tom's fish tank that her tense nerves relaxed a little. She casually picked up a goldfish from the tank and swallowed it in one bite. Tom was stunned.
Just don't eat my dog, okay?
After questioning, he learned this woman was Atlana, queen of Atlantis, who had fled from the underwater kingdom to the unfamiliar land world to escape a forced political marriage. Although they came from two completely different worlds, she formed a deep bond with the ordinary Tom. As their feelings grew over time, they finally had a son, whom they named Arthur. However, Atlana's special identity destined their lives to be unpeaceful. One early morning, several Atlantean soldiers in advanced naval combat suits suddenly broke into Tom's house, ordered to take the queen back to the deep sea. Atlana refused to comply and joined forces with Tom to fight back. She took the trident Tom threw to her and fought bravely, and with her extraordinary combat strength, she quickly subdued several soldiers. But to protect Tom and the young Arthur, Atlana had to compromise, and choose to return to the deep sea to complete the wedding with the king. As time passed, the Atlantean blood in Arthur's body gradually awakened. He not only gained the ability to communicate with marine creatures, but also to command the vast oceans. His innate ability to breathe underwater, combined with his golden eyes that could pierce the darkness of the deep sea, made him a unique being between the land and the ocean. Although Atlana couldn't return to her husband and son, she secretly sent her trusted minister Vulko to the land, to teach Arthur to master his powers and familiarize him with Atlantean history. Hoping that he could face potential crises one day, Tom never gave up, waiting for his wife's return. While Arthur grew up on land, one day, many years later, a human-attacked submarine was patrolling underwater. A submersible shaped like a manta ray quietly approached, and attached itself to the submarine's hatch. Then a group of fully armed pirates broke into the submarine. All naval officers in the cockpit were killed, and the captain was brutally murdered by the leader, David Kane. Then Kane and his father went to the torpedo room together, where dozens of sailors were hiding. On the way, his father handed Kane a family heirloom dagger, a symbol of their pirate family's honor. At this moment, an unknown humanoid creature crashed into the submarine at high speed. The newcomer was Aquaman, Arthur. He easily kicked open the submarine's hatch, with his invulnerable body. He took down the entire pirate gang in just a few minutes. Then he rescued the sailors in the torpedo room. Just then, Kane launched a surprise attack. Kane's father took advantage of the fight to fire a grenade from behind, but Arthur remained unharmed. Arthur pulled off an iron pipe, walked over, and disarmed the old man. He originally wanted to spare their lives, but the old man took another chance to attack. Arthur dodged with a quick movement. The grenade exploded and blew a hole in the submarine's hull. The massive water pressure blew the torpedo open, pinning the old man underneath. Arthur ignored him and prepared to leave. Kane begged him to save his father, but Arthur believed that people who killed innocents like them deserved to be judged by the ocean. Kane could only watch helplessly as his father was trapped. In the end, he had to give up after his father pulled the bomb's pin, and from then on, he bore an irreconcilable hatred for Arthur. Two forces met in the deep sea. One of them was ORM, Arthur's half-brother from the same mother. After the old king's death, he had become the new king of Atlantis. ORM's ambition was fully revealed. He planned to lead the Atlantean army to attack the land, but due to insufficient troops, he tried to win over King Zeeble to form an alliance. but King Zeeble only wanted to maintain the kingdom's stability and refused his invitation. Just as ORM was at a loss, a human nuclear submarine launched an attack on Zeeble's territory. The violent explosion threw everyone present into chaos. King Zeeble was pinned under the collapsed debris and couldn't move. At the critical moment, ORM appeared in time to save him. Then he rode on a giant shark mount, and with a trident in hand, he tore the submarine to pieces in just a few strikes. This accident made King Zeeble change his mind, and agreed to join forces with ORM to march against the land. But in fact, all of this was a show directed and performed by ORM himself. That submarine was the one Kane had hijacked not long ago. King ORM had secretly traded with the pirates to provoke a war. However, when settling the reward, Kane no longer wanted gold coins, because his father had died because of Aquaman, so now he only wanted revenge. But King ORM didn't pay him any attention. That night, Mara, the princess of the kingdom of Zeeble, found Arthur, begging him to return to Atlantis to claim the throne and stop the war ORM was about to start. But Arthur wasn't interested in this and took his drunk father home. But soon he noticed something was wrong. The coastline was rising abnormally. A huge tsunami was sweeping toward the fishing village. He stepped hard on the accelerator to try to escape, but the towering waves still swallowed the car in an instant. Arthur moved freely in the water, but Tom, an ordinary human, was in mortal danger. Just as Arthur was anxiously searching for his father, a strange vortex suddenly appeared in the water, catching his attention. Arthur didn't think twice and rushed into it. Mara, who had the power to control water, just raised her hand slightly, and the turbulent seawater retreated quickly as if enchanted. Arthur didn't have time to delve deeper. He quickly dragged his unconscious father out of the water and onto the shore. But when he felt Tom's pulse, his heart sank instantly. His father had stopped breathing. At this critical moment, Mara stepped forward quickly. Her palms glowed with a faint blue light as she pressed them gently against Tom's chest. A magical scene unfolded. The seawater in Tom's lungs turned into wisps of water vapor, and was sucked out of his body, accompanied by a violent cough. Tom slowly woke up, managing to escape death by a hair's breadth. The tsunami flattened the entire fishing village, and made the headlines of major news outlets the next day. The coastline was piled with the wreckage of fishing boats and warships washed ashore, as well as all kinds of garbage that humans had dumped into the ocean over the years. At this moment, Princess Mara found Arthur again and begged him to return to Atlantis. Remembering that Mara had saved his father's life, Arthur no longer refused, and followed her to the underwater kingdom. As they passed through the magnificent underwater highway, Arthur witnessed the power of Atlantis for the first time. The high-pressure water cannons on the city walls were heavily guarded. Any trespasser would be defeated in an instant. Relying on Mara's royal status, the two entered the royal city. Various bionic machines in the city operated in an orderly manner. Its level of civilization far surpassed that of the land world. In a sunken ancient ship, they met Vulko, who had been waiting there. Vulko stated that with Arthur's current strength, he was no match for ORM, only by finding the legendary Trident of Poseidon. Then Vulko told a story from ancient times. A blacksmith from Beta used Poseidon's cold iron as material to forge a golden trident symbolizing supreme power for the first ruler of Atlantis. This divine weapon contained the oceanic power of Poseidon. At that time, Atlantis was still on land, and was a unified kingdom, while other civilizations still believed the Earth was flat. Atlantis had already developed technology and civilization beyond its time, by deciphering the mysteries contained in the Trident. However, the old king's growing ambition drove him to try to extract the original divine power from the artifact. This act of blasphemy triggered divine punishment. In an instant, mountains crumbled and tsunami swept in. Towering waves surged and engulfed the land. The glorious continent of Atlantis sank into the deep sea in the blink of an eye. Amazingly, the surviving people gradually adapted to the deep sea environment, and evolved in different directions, and split into 7 major kingdoms over the long years. However, some lost kingdoms not only suffered a cultural gap, but also degenerated into bloodthirsty underwater monsters. The old king, filled with remorse, chose self-exile and spent the rest of his life in eternal darkness, while the golden trident lay quietly dormant in the deepest part of the ocean, waiting for the call of its destined owner. Not long ago, Atlantis archaeological team discovered an ancient device, which was most likely a clue left by the old king, located in the Lost Kingdom. But before Arthur could take the device, a cannonball suddenly pierced the hull. ORM's pursuers had already arrived. Arthur's whereabouts had been detected by ORM's royal guards. At first, a team of white-armored warriors came to surround and capture him, but these ordinary soldiers were no match for Arthur, and were quickly defeated by him without effort. However, more elite red-armored warriors soon swarmed in. At first, Arthur was still able to gain the upper hand, knocking down 3 red-armored soldiers in just a few moves. But with the appearance of the red-armored captain, the battle situation reversed instantly. The captain delivered a heavy punch infused with high-tech energy, knocking Arthur unconscious on the spot. Mara and Volko had to evacuate temporarily. They knew that if their identities were exposed and labeled as traitors at this moment, there would be no way to make amends later. When Arthur woke up, he found himself escorted to Atlantis Hall of Judgment. Thick, custom-made chains as thick as an arm bound him tightly. The man in golden armor with a dignified expression on the throne was his half-brother, King ORM. ORM deliberately provoked Arthur with words, mocking his identity as a bastard, and inciting the minister's hostility toward him. Arthur, enraged, impulsively challenged ORM's royal authority, not knowing this was exactly what ORM wanted. According to Atlantean tradition, as long as one wins in a formal royal duel, ORM's throne would become more secure, and he could also eliminate Arthur, a threat, in a justifiable way. This duel was doomed to be unfair from the start. There was already a gap in strength between Arthur and ORM, plus the underwater environment was ORM's home turf. The water resistance and environment were unfavorable to Arthur, who had lived on land for a long time, but the challenge had already been issued, and Arthur believed he wouldn't lose. The royal duel soon began. From the start, ORM exuded an overwhelming sense of dominance. Every strike was precise and brutal. At first, Arthur could barely fend off the attacks, but as the battle intensified, he gradually fell into a disadvantaged position. Defending against ORM's assaults became increasingly difficult, as Arthur was about to be pushed into the magma pit below by ORM. The Atlantean blood in his veins unleashed its potential once more at this life-or-death moment. A smooth sequence of counterattacks temporarily turned the tide, but ORM soon demonstrated his terrifying control over the underwater environment. He not only regained his balance quickly, but also manipulated the underground magma to counterattack. Soon, the prolonged fierce battle pushed Arthur to the brink of exhaustion, while ORM remained unperturbed. In the end, a heavy blow knocked Arthur to the ground. Even the trident his mother left him was broken. Just as ORM was about to deliver the fatal blow to Arthur, a sudden vortex altered the course of the battle. It was secretly created by Mara using her water control abilities. It not only separated part of the seawater, causing temporary discomfort to ORM, who was accustomed to the deep-sea environment, but also caused seawater to flood back, inflicting secondary damage. Mara knew that if she didn't rescue Arthur now, they would never get another chance to fight back. The enraged ORM ordered the entire army to attack. Lasers and energy cannons filled the battlefield in an instant. But these soldiers were no match for Arthur after all. What made ORM even angrier was witnessing his fiancée Mara betray him. He immediately piloted a warplane to chase them, vowing to kill them both. Soon, a cannonball hit Mara's ship, though the ship was eventually shot down, just 1 second before it fell into the magma. Arthur and Mara managed to jump off the ship and escape. In the critical moment, Arthur used his talent to communicate with marine creatures to attract a giant whale, and took Mara to hide in the whale's mouth. Watching the gradually melting ship wreckage, ORM thought Arthur had perished in the magma, unaware that the two were discussing their next plan inside the whale, to stand against ORM. Arthur and Mara, carrying the ancient key given by Volko, embarked on a perilous journey to find the trident of Poseidon. Through ancient documents, Mara confirmed that the legendary trident was buried in the Sahara Desert. The two flew to the center of the desert by plane. Mara jumped off the aircraft without hesitation. Although Arthur was worried about the danger of the height, he mustered up the courage to follow her. Fortunately, both had superhuman physiques and were unharmed after the high fall. Just as Arthur couldn't help complaining about Mara's impulsive actions, the sand under his feet suddenly collapsed, pulling Mara down into the deeper underground with him. Surprisingly, the scale of this underground space was far beyond their imagination. The two slid for a long time before reaching the depths of the underground. Arthur reacted quickly and caught Mara in time during the fall. The two landed safely. This was the sacred place where the first king of Atlantis had held power. Continuing their exploration, they soon found the ancient stone platform where the trident had been forged. Gazing at the dusty mysterious device, Mara immediately took out the key Volko had given her, and inserted it into the mechanism slot of the stone platform. But due to the long-term drought and lack of water here, the mechanism showed no response. Mara used her water control ability to extract sweat from Arthur's body and drip it onto the key. The mechanism was activated as expected. The gears turned slowly, as if awakening some ancient magic circle, as a soft light flashed by. A hologram of the first Aquaman appeared in front of them. The former king frankly admitted that he had once tried to extract the trident's divine power out of greed, nearly causing the destruction of Atlantis. So the successor to the trident must possess both virtue and ability, able to both master power and restrain ambition. After the hologram disappeared, an ancient sheepskin map was left on the stone platform, which marked the follow-up clues to find the trident. At the same time, ORM's men also found that Mara was still alive through positioning, so they found Cain and brought him the most advanced marine weapons, including the newly developed scepter. ORM said there was only one mission, to kill Arthur and his girlfriend by his side, and there would be a great reward for its completion.
Killing him is my reward.
After returning, Cain modified his equipment, combining the armor with the scepter and spraying it with black paint. After finishing, he tested it. Fortunately, he dodged quickly, otherwise, he would have died. At this time, Arthur and Mara arrived at the Sicily island. According to the map, Mara, who was stepping onto land for the first time, was full of curiosity about everything here. She naively tasted roses as if they were snacks, and even used her water control skills to play with local children. On the other side, ORM went to the territory of the Fishermen's tribe to persuade them to surrender. But the Fishermen's tribe had always been a peace-loving clan. ORM lost his patience, stabbed the king to death, and then eliminated all the royal guards. The young princess of the Fishermen's tribe became the new queen, and had to obey ORM's order to surrender. On land, Arthur focused on studying the secrets of the trident. Finally, he locked onto the exact location of the divine artifact, through the special patterns at the bottom of an ancient glass bottle. But just then, the familiar sound of explosions rang out again. His old rival Cain, wearing the Black Manta armor, led a group of ORM's elite troops, and suddenly attacked from the sea. The power of this new armor far exceeded expectations. Even Arthur's usually invulnerable skin was burned black. Mara wanted to step forward to help but was surrounded by Black Manta's men. Although Mara had excellent skills, the enemy had a numerical advantage. Under the intense fire suppression, she had to take shelter in a winery temporarily. The red-armored soldiers who chased after her tried to kill Mara. At the critical moment, Mara had a sudden idea. She used her water control ability to manipulate all the red wine in the winery, turning it into countless blood-colored spears to accurately kill the enemies. On the other side, Arthur was in a difficult situation. Under the absolute suppression of Black Manta's high-tech equipment, he was forced to retreat step by step, to protect the innocent civilians nearby. Arthur was accidentally hit in the back by a laser whip, and the severe pain almost made him fall to the ground. But he endured the pain and took the opportunity to rush forward, grabbing Black Manta and pulling him forward to restrict his movements. Just as Arthur was distracted by treating his back wound, Black Manta suddenly pulled out a blade and stabbed Arthur in the shoulder. The intense pain instead awakened Arthur's potential. He unleashed incredible strength, landing a punch on the armor's energy core, causing Black Manta's armor to malfunction. Black Manta's armor started charging energy again. The laser cannon muzzle glowed with a dangerous red light. Arthur reacted quickly, grabbing a stone ball from the ground and throwing it at Black Manta. In the billowing smoke, Black Manta, along with his armor, fell into a bottomless valley, his fate unknown. When Mara rushed over in a panic, the first thing she saw was Arthur lying in a pool of blood. He was covered in wounds and barely breathing. Mara quickly took him to the sea and treated Arthur with an ancient method, combined with Arthur's powerful self-healing genes in his body. His wounds healed at a visible rate. After regaining his strength, the two exchanged a glance, then raised the sails without hesitation, cutting through the waves toward the final location of the trident. The weather on the sea became increasingly severe. A storm lashed the ship violently. Mara clung tightly to the ship's side, filled with anxiety. When she turned around, she was horrified to see a ferocious sea monster standing silently on the deck. This was the territory of the sea monster tribe, and also the place where Arthur's mother, Atlanta, was exiled back then. Even though Mara could skillfully control water flow, but against the swarming, fearless sea monsters, they stood no chance of winning. As more and more sea monsters took over the ship, the two were forced to jump into the dark sea. Arthur noticed that these sea monsters, which had lived in darkness for years, were extremely afraid of light sources. They had to cross the narrow, underwater canyon, before the glow sticks they carried went out, and enter the storm area filled with lightning. After a tough battle, the two successfully crossed the canyon and reached the center of the lightning storm. To escape the sea monster's pursuit, they risked jumping into the storm vortex, but were struck by a powerful bolt of lightning. A strong tearing force separated them. Unexpectedly, the vortex was actually a dimensional portal. Just as Mara was about to be devoured by an ancient sea monster, a white light appeared in time to save her. When she woke up, she found herself in the legendary hidden sea at the Earth's core, where translucent crystal islands floated in the air, and extinct dinosaurs could even be seen moving between the islands. Even more shocking was that the one who saved her was Arthur's long-lost mother, Atlanta. Even though they had been separated for decades, Atlanta recognized Arthur at a glance. The mother and son hugged and wept. It turned out that after being exiled to the sea monster tribe's territory, she wasn't eaten by the sea monsters. Instead, she accidentally entered the hidden sea while evading pursuit. Though she survived by luck, she could never leave due to the barrier's restrictions. Atlanta took the two to her residence, then eagerly asked about Arthur's father's situation over the years. Arthur said his father was the same as always. Every morning, he would go to that pier, hoping his wife would come home, and he had kept this routine for decades without change. After hearing this, Atlanta shed tears of guilt. She then told them that only by obtaining the legendary Trident of Poseidon and gaining the divine power to control the oceans could they break the barrier and leave the hidden sea. Arthur dived into the mine behind the waterfall without hesitation and saw the legendary statue of the first Aquaman, and next to the statue was the sleeping golden trident. But such an important divine artifact was naturally guarded by a guardian beast. An ancient behemoth named Kara then had guarded the trident for thousands of years. Anyone who tried to approach became its meal. Arthur suffered greatly in the first round of the confrontation. The gap in strength between them was like a chasm. He was tossed around by Kara then like a ball, with no ability to fight back. At this life or death moment, Arthur's innate talent played a crucial role. To gain the trident's recognition, one must possess the ability to communicate with all creatures of the ocean. This talent is once in a millennium. Kara then sensed the unique qualities in Arthur's body, as well as his reverence and kindness toward the ocean, and took the initiative to step aside. The rest depended on Arthur's fate. The moment Arthur's hand touched the trident, he gained its recognition. A powerful energy surged through his entire body. Vast oceanic knowledge and the combat experience of past Aquaman flooded his mind like a tide. At this moment, the new Aquaman was officially born. At this time, ORM was leading a large army, marching menacingly toward the Saltwater Tribe, the last tribe that refused to submit. The Saltwater Tribe's strength was far inferior to ORM's army, but under the leadership of their chieftain Guhan, the entire tribe fought tenaciously with the determination to defend their home to the death. The sea water where the two armies clashed was dyed dark red with blood. Corpses floated in the ocean. The scene was tragic. ORM's army quickly broke through the Saltwater Tribe's defense line. With its advanced technological equipment, ORM rode a giant shark mount and was invincible on the battlefield. Wherever he went, Saltwater Tribe soldiers fell one after another. But the Saltwater Tribe didn't retreat. They sent out their special crab soldier unit. Even giant crabs dug up magma from the seabed to launch long-range attacks, trying to stop ORM's advance. Seeing the battle stalemate, ORM decided to capture the ringleader to subdue the gang. He charged alone into the heart of the enemy camp and cut off one of the Saltwater Tribe chieftain's arms with a single sword strike. Just as he was about to deliver the fatal blow to the chieftain, the seabed suddenly shook violently, the earth's crust split open, and magma gushed out. Several huge tentacles stretched out from the crack. It was Kara then, the ancient sea monster that guarded the trident, and standing on Karathan's head was Arthur, the new Aquaman. With Karathan's help, the battle situation reversed instantly. ORM's army, despite its sophisticated equipment, was no match for this behemoth. Warships were easily destroyed by the tentacles, soldiers suffered heavy casualties. What was even more shocking, Arthur, relying on the power of the trident, could control all creatures in the ocean. Even the army of sharks that ORM had, carefully trained, defected, and turned to attack ORM's forces. Seeing that the tide had turned against him, King of Zebel agreed to lead his army and submit to Arthur under Mara's persuasion, but ORM refused to give up. He insisted on a one-on-one duel with Arthur, hoping to reclaim the throne. This time, Arthur learned from his previous defeat and chose the sea surface as the battlefield. ORM's strength was greatly reduced away from the deep sea environment, while Arthur, holding the golden trident, was even more powerful and quickly gained the absolute upper hand. Arthur gave ORM multiple chances, hoping he would come to his senses and abandon his plan to attack the land. But ORM remained stubborn. In the end, Arthur used the water tornado technique taught by Vulko. Despite his defeat, ORM still refused to concede. He believed Arthur was to blame for his mother's death. At this critical moment, Atlanta suddenly appeared. Seeing his mother safe and sound, the hatred and obsession in ORM's heart finally faded away. From this moment on, Arthur gained the recognition of all Atlanteans, and was officially crowned Aquaman. The Seven Kingdoms were reunified. Atlanta was also reunited with Tom. The lovers, separated for years, finally met again. However, behind this seemingly perfect ending, a new crisis lurked. Black Manta had not died. He was rescued by a doctor obsessed with Atlantis. Though seriously injured, he was secretly repairing his armor and gathering forces, plotting a new revenge plan against Arthur. What kind of challenge will this persistent enemy bring to the new Aquaman? As an important work in the DC Extended Universe, Aquaman achieved breakthroughs in multiple aspects within the framework of superhero genre films. The protagonist Arthur, as a half-human and half-Atlantean, his identity dilemma resonates particularly strongly with modern audiences. Director James Wan's visual presentation is absolutely stunning. The underwater world is crafted to be both dreamlike and real. realistic, from glowing buildings to swimming marine creatures, every detail is amazing. It truly gives the feeling of being underwater. These magnificent scenes are not just for aesthetics, but more importantly, to express characters' emotions and drive the story forward. The film balances its narrative well, featuring both grand war scenes and delicate emotional moments. Jason Momoa's portrayal of Aquaman breaks the traditional image of superheroes. He is both powerful and humorous, and very down-to-earth. Amber Heard's Mera is also distinctive. She isn't a female lead who needs to be saved, but an independent and strong female character. The action scenes are also creative, whether it's large-scale underwater battles or one-on-one duels, each has its own characteristics. The most rare thing is that while ensuring entertainment, the film also conveys the environmental concept of ocean protection, allowing the audience to think while enjoying the visual feast. It proves that superhero films can be both entertaining and meaningful. This film makes new attempts in both visual effects and thematic depth, opening up new possibilities for the development of this genre. Watching the original film is highly recommended. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe to it.